Hey guys, it's me, Halloween Dan, and today I am going to be talking about some more props. But today, I thought for a moment what I'd talk about is some props that maybe don't get as much attention as other props. There's a certain kind of prop I'm thinking about when I say that, and that maybe for most people within the Halloween community are kind of seen as a bit like, what? But this is a Halloween channel where I talk about all Halloween related things. These are a part of Halloween, whether you love them or hate them. And so, therefore, I feel they need to be spoken about because some of these things are pretty cool. And I'm very, very much a person who likes these things. Not enough to buy them a lot of the time, but I still do like these things. And that is Inflatables. Yes, I will be talking about some of the brand new inflatables coming to Mad About Horror this year, which they only announced sort of last week. The sort of beginning of their lineup, sort of just warming us here into the UK into what they will be bringing out this season. I will also be talking about some of the incredible new props coming to the Tractor Supply Company. So join me. So we're going to start off with the Tractor Supply Company, a firm that until about a year ago I'd never heard of because I'm from the UK. But it's true, I'd never heard of them, I didn't know anything that they did. And then last year a few people tagged me in posts to do with really one particular thing they were bringing out last year. And it was this. Yeah, a big 6-foot skeleton chicken that was just so bizarre and so crazy that I really didn't know what to do with that, how to make a video about that. So instead I just made this.
Who made this chicken? Who made it? Why? Who made it? Why? Because I love it!
What can I say? I like chicken. And this year, they've done it again. They've brought out a whole range of skeletalized animals and also a skeletal groundbreaker type prop. And I have to say, I think they're all quite incredible. Some of them are a little bit expensive, but they're incredible nonetheless. So we start with a whole range of smaller end animals, some really quite creative ideas. We've got a skeleton possum. We've got a skeleton baby possum. We've got a skeleton raccoon. You get the idea. These props, I think, all range between sort of like $16 and up to about $30. They're just a fun, cute little fun thing to add into your horn. I don't know where the whole skeleton animal thing came from. We see a lot of this here in the UK. We get a lot of skeleton dogs. We've even had skeleton spiders, which doesn't make a lot of sense because spiders don't have skeletons.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I'm doing it really, really well.
Someone needs to go back to their biology class. But regardless, of course, reality kind of always takes a pause when we talk about Halloween props anyway. So that doesn't matter overly. These things are quite fun, quite cute. There's also some more impressive versions of these skeletalized props. There is a goose that's about $70. I don't know whether that's a bit expensive for a skeletal goose, but you know, each to their own. But there is 3 props within this lineup that I think are really quite impressive and I think could be used in multiple ways. The first one is a fully sized 6-foot tall horse. Yes, it's a horse. It's a skeleton horse. It's just a big horse. And it's very, very cool. I have to say, if you've got a haunt where everything's skeletal, you know, you've got like a haunt where it's mostly skeletons on your house, skeletons in your haunt. You're one of them people who do skeletons doing different things, maybe every day or every other day. I think skeleton animals is the next natural progression. And a skeleton horse is very much a statement piece, right? This could be used in tandem with something like a hearse, you know, like an old Victorian hearse. Or you could maybe use this as like a headless horseman kind of a prop with the skeleton with no head perhaps. Or just a skeleton riding a horse would probably still be very cool. It could be used in a myriad of themes and I think it's very, very good. The only downside to this prop is that it's $600. Yeah, that's a pretty expensive horse. Skeleton horse. I mean, I don't think anyone until the 21st century would have ever thought of paying $600 for a dead horse.
Passed on. This parrot is no more. It has ceased to be. It's expired and gone to meet its maker.
How times change. The other very cool prop is this skeleton mummy groundbreaker that they're bringing out this year. It's an incredible looking prop. It's 35 inches in height, so it's not the biggest groundbreaker ever, but it is still pretty impressive in its own right, and the fact that it's like a mummified groundbreaker is something slightly different to what we've been used to seeing in recent years. I think this as well was the Morris Costumes groundbreaker that we kind of saw revealed at the start of the year, but then it sort of seemed to do a vanishing act, and now, of course, Tractor Supply Company have brought it out. So it's very, very impressive. I think it's very cool, and it's $170. So I think that is far, far more reasonable for this kind of prop, and I think that's a winner. I would definitely buy that. $170 is a bit of a steal. The final prop in their lineup, which is really worth a mention and is very impressive, is their 7-foot buck skeleton. So this is a buck deer. It's an incredible looking thing. It really, really is. Now, whether you would really have a need for a deer in your haunt, I'm not really sure. It doesn't really make a whole bunch of sense to Halloween. I suppose it's got that slightly Wendigo woodland vibe to it. So that might play a good theme in your haunt, depending on what you go for. As well, deer and the whole fact that, you know, the male deer, the bucks, always have their antlers in full display in the autumn time. So they are a very autumny kind of an animal in that kind of sense. But again, $600 for this guy. I mean, that's expensive. Here in the UK, we have a saying where when something's quite expensive, you'll go, that's a bit dear. You know, that just means that's a bit expensive. So this is a very dear. But now we move into the slightly more controversial realm of Halloween. And it's a realm that I've dug at a few times and I've talked about a few times. And it always does split people. This creates a massive chasm of a divide within the Halloween community. And it is, of course, inflatables. Some people absolutely adore inflatables and will basically create an entire haunt of inflatables. Every kind of inflatable you can imagine. Some people will not include a single inflatable, even if they have the space to, because they see them as a bit tacky.
Oh, that's tacky. That's really tacky.
And a bit pointless. And I'm very much on the fence. I'm somewhere in the middle. I like a good inflatable. If it's a good one, I think they work very well if you know how you're going to use them. Last year, you might remember I bought my inflatable octopus tentacles, which hang from my windows. They're very impressive. They're very cool. Everyone enjoyed them, and they definitely work where they are. But I wouldn't necessarily have introduced that into my main haunt, which is obviously around the front of my house. But there is a definite snobbishness within the community about inflatables and those who choose to use them. And I think it often is a little unwarranted. If you like inflatables and they're a Halloweeny inflatable and you just want to show willing and you just want to show the world, I like Halloween, here's a big Halloween inflatable, I don't see anything wrong with it. And so that's why I really wanted to talk about this lineup, because some of these inflatables are actually really impressive. And I think if you're from the UK and you've got room for an inflatable and you like inflatables, I think you might want to be having a little look at this website. Now, over the past few weeks and months, Mad About Horror have been sort of introducing some new things to their lineup, which is pretty incredible. The only reason I'm not focusing on them is because they're mostly props we've all seen before. They are introducing from Home Depot the 6-foot marionette witch and the giant LED murderous maple tree, which were Home Depot props from last year. From Spirit, they're introducing Michael Myers, the Michael Myers that was released last year, as well as the 7-foot Ringmaster. So again, very impressive props that are usually very much worth talking about, except for the fact that I have already spoken about them last year. But it is their lineup inflatables that they only really announced end of last week, which I think is quite an impressive lineup. You start off with the sorts of things we've seen many times before that are all kind of generic, to be honest. You have the inflatable pumpkins, of course. We've got a 12-foot inflatable light-up ghost, which is incredibly impressive in its own right. Very cool. We've got this big 8-foot green spider that's incredibly impressive. There's a 5-foot version as well, which is purple. They've got kind of like disco lights going on in the back of them. And then there's these cuter ones, more like an inflatable ghost. There's also an inflatable hand, like a disembodied hand. Very cool in their own right. The ones that I always like are the ones that are on a slightly bigger scale and are doing something slightly more impressive. The first one to know is this inflatable black and orange cat. I've seen this many times before. I think I saw this at one of the expos either this year or last year. I can't quite remember. It's been around for a while, but it is a pretty cool thing. This black cat with a very menacing face, and it tilts its head backwards and forwards, so it's actually an animated inflatable. They've also got this 9-foot animated Halloween tree inflatable with ghosts on it. I used to have an inflatable tree with pumpkins in the branches, and it was one of my favorite things ever. So this is very cool. I like a haunted looking tree. It's got this big wide gaping mouth, these bright orange burning eyes, and it's got a ghost popping out of the top. But very coolly, in its what would be its mouth, there is another ghost that kind of 1 minute it's not there, and then it pops up to say hello, and then it pops back down. I think it's a very cool thing. I think it's very interesting. I think in the right place that could actually go in almost any haunt, to be quite honest with you. There's a 5-foot animated pumpkin with a ghost that pops up out of the pumpkin. Again, one we've seen several times before. And then there's a couple of really cool archways, like entranceway archways. One of them's like a Halloween haunted house type archway with ghosts coming out of it. That's pretty cool. I quite like that. I think my favorite one though is this 10-foot inflatable Halloween monster mouth archway, which is this big green monstrous creature type thing, and the way that the inflatable is crafted so that it looks as though the sort of jawline of the monster creates the archway rather than these big inflatable things. So I think at night in particular that would actually look really impressive. Probably the most impressive one, but again it depends on what your vibe is this 8.5-foot animated 3-headed dragon, which it looks as though Mad About Horror themselves filmed at one of the expos, maybe even Transworld, I can't be sure. And it's this very large inflatable dragon with 3 heads, and the heads are kind of going up and down in movement. I think it's really cool. I'm sure that someone else will agree. There's not really any room for disagreeing with them, to be honest. I think that inflatables get a pretty bad rap. Again, I get where some people are coming from. Some of them are overly family friendly. Some of them are overly tacky. Ooh. I get it. I know. I used to have an inflatable. I thought it was the best thing ever. And then one year I just looked at it and was like, no, Dan. No.
It's definitely a no for me, dog.
But if you have limited space but still want to show willing for Halloween, if you have a big space and you want to really make an impact, if maybe you want to celebrate Halloween but you don't have all the time in the world to spend hours and hours tinkering away with the little secret details that only you end up noticing, then inflatables are the way forward, people.
How dare you!
They're not overly expensive. You plug them in, they blow up, and they are impressive. The only downside to them is that they generally don't last very long unless you look after them. They're not great with cold and damp conditions. The fans just don't seem to really like that particularly, even though often these things are made to be outdoors. Obviously, the wind can be a problem for these things because they're filled with air and they just want to take off every 5 seconds. So you've really got to make sure you've got the space to stake them down properly, or you will end up with an inflatable in your neighbor's garden. But apart from these downsides that really you can't do anything about because they're more to do with the weather than they are to do with anything, I genuinely think that there's a lot of room for inflatables in the Halloween community, and I personally enjoy them. Anyway, guys, that's it for today. Just a super quick one, just to get those last few things out there to talk about before we get any more things revealed. And so for today, guys, that is it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Keep it spooky. Bye.